Hello, Humane marketers. Sarah Znakrocha here. Welcome to another episode of the Humane Marketing Podcast, a place to be for the generation of marketers who cares. This is the show where we talk about marketing your business in a way that feels good to you, is aligned with your values, and also resonates more with your conscious customers because it's not pushy, ethical, and also beautiful. So if you're a regular here, you know that I'm organizing the conversations around the 7 Ps of humane marketing. And if you're new here and this is your first time, welcome. I'm so excited you're here. You may want to download your one-page marketing plan with the 7 Ps of humane marketing in the form of a mandala at humane.marketing/one page, the number one and page. So again, humane.marketing/one page. And with that, with no further ado, let's dive into today's conversation. Hey, Lisa, so good to talk to you today. Thanks.
Yeah, so it's so great to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, we just recently connected, and I love these connections where you're like, oh yeah, I have to have you on the show. And you get all these pitches in your inbox. You have a podcast, so you must say, oh, thanks, no thanks. I just rather reach out to people that I really want to have on. So when I heard you on the other Lisa's podcast, I'm like, oh yeah, that sounded real, authentic, even though authentic is such a buzzword, but that's what I felt like when I listened to you. So
it's still a good word. I still like the word. Yeah. Cool.
Good to have you. I'm looking forward to talking about memberships and how to kind of create a membership site or whatever community, whatever you want to call it, but build it in a humane way, because that's what we're all about here on this show, in a way that is probably not just all about scaling and going big or going home. And that's kind of the feeling that I got when I heard you talk. And then I went over to your website, and your website is called Scaling Deep. And I'm like, oh yeah, tell me more. So yeah, tell me a bit about Scaling Deep, and then we dive into membership sites.
Yeah, well, scaling deep really means a lot to me, and I probably don't talk about it enough. So thanks for asking, because it really is about honoring our nature of wanting to grow and evolve. And we're not people who most people don't just want to get to a point and they're like, I'm done, I've stopped striving or trying things. Because again, it's our makeup, right? So denying that, it does get us into like trouble when we say we don't want to earn, or we say we don't want to grow, or we don't want to make something big, because it's what we're wired for, all of us to different extents. So I think when we can figure out how to do it in a way that has more impact, or that feels richer and feels more rewarding, then we're honoring that and we're still doing something good. And we don't necessarily have to do things that are changing the world overnight, because that's a lot of pressure also. And we're able to just honor that, but then also just do more good with it. And I think that's a lot of people who I work with too. They are people who aren't necessarily motivated all by money. And and yet earnings is a way to evaluate our success, our impact, and just how we're performing as humans. So it's a really challenging balance. And I really like just the concept of, well, what would you do if you did grow naturally? Would you be setting goals like, I need to make this next year, and setting huge team goals? Or would you be also saying, well, how can we have like a greater impact? Like, how can we make the experience better for everyone if there's profit, for example, rather than just thinking about it as an egocentric milestone that we're bragging to the world. And I think there's a lot more businesses out there like that than we know, but they're just not telling us how huge they are, because they're just growing naturally from doing good work. And there's a lot of memberships out there doing that. And they aren't the ones that are doing like loads and loads of ads or doing huge podcast tours and all that. And so they're growing in a meaningful way. So I think that that's just really what I stand for. And I want more people to recognize that you can have both. And if you deny growth, it's frustrating also, because then we know we're not living our potential just because we say, well, I'm not interested in money. So there's just a whole rabbit hole there of I can really, what's gone on in my mind for how many years, really, that I won't get into.
Yeah. Yeah. Two things come to mind. First of all, the ego. Yeah. It's like the ego keeps talking to us and saying, but you should really go bigger and bigger and bigger. And what I've learned over the years, even though, like you said, I'm not motivated by money to the extent where it's almost like becomes a problem.
Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to get at. It does become a problem because then in a way, we're like, what are we doing working all this hard for free and not really earning a lot or earning enough from what we're putting out into the world? So monetizing the content and all that stuff like has to happen, and unless you're just not in that position, and then that's a different thing altogether. So I think that's where there is that balance, because again, that can just be sabotage in some ways. Like, why aren't we spending more time feeling relaxed and peaceful around our family or something than hammering towards something and then not earning enough? So again, it's a bit problematic. So that's why I think if we get into purpose and we feel like working is a good thing to do, like it's part of a good way to live. We weren't really built for leisure, all the time. And we want to work towards good things. So if we can do that and then find the joy in it, put a reasonable amount of time in, and then the rewards come together from fulfillment, also the earnings, because we're really in our space. And I think that's really the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right that society does always put success together with money, but I'm really challenging that. I don't think that needs to be the definition of success. I'd rather have a business where I'm not working all the time and, making less money, but enough money for myself. And so I think that's also what you're saying with these the membership business model. That's something that is actually feasible, it's doable, right? And it doesn't need to be in that slimy way where it's like, oh, I'm spending all my time at the beach while making loads and loads of money. That's not because that's kind of what the membership site model used to be in the days. It was like this lifestyle,
well, all of online business 10 years ago,
all of them.
When I first started really seeing everything online, it really was the laptop at the beach, like in the early 2010 kind of era. I mean, that's what everyone was encouraging. So, and any scalable model. I mean, I think what we're seeing is that in general, in online business, people are kind of drop that because they know that that's not real. And yet they're just saying, grow in a way that allows you to kind of sell one to many. And then there are, there's trade-offs. There's intense moments when you're growing a business based on some level of volume. There is launching, there are moments where you are going to work extra hard, but I think it's all about trying to find a sustainable balance because, and truthfully, most people are not sustainable. Like they are putting more in than they're earning in a membership model at the beginning. And that's kind of where I really want to come in and help people figure that out, because we also don't want to be working for years and not earning enough and putting too much time into it. And, it's really got to work. It's got to work out after a certain period, like any startup, like any business, there's got to be a tipping point where there are more profit and it comes at easier, at a greater ease.
Sure. And we'll get into that. I want to start kind of like what we said before, maybe, 10 years ago, what a membership site was and what people want today and how that has maybe changed over time. I remember being a member of some of these sites or whatever they were called, and it's just downloads, tons and tons of information, downloads, and in the end, everybody just felt, and that's a big topic for me, everybody felt more anxious. There was more anxiety because there was a huge overload of information and people are like, now I feel still like a loser because I don't know what to do with all this information.
And that was back in the day when we used to let people tell us what success was and we didn't discern. And because that was, again, early days of online everything. And I think that's when we would say, well, if we don't do all this, whereas now I think people are more savvy, no matter who they are and what sophistication they are coming into the space, they are saying like, this isn't working for me, or this isn't, despite the fact you're telling me I need to follow these steps, like I'm stuck here and it's not working. So I think people are more vocal. So there's no one really able to get away with just saying, I'm going to overwhelm them. And then they will, they will stay because they'll feel like they should be doing something. I think the consumer is more savvy now. So that's changed. And that's why we really have to be very mindful of sort of what we deliver as membership business owners as well.
So more savvy. I would also add probably more conscious in terms of, what I talk about, but I know you talk about it as well, the marketing piece. It's like, how do we get people into our membership? Well, they're more savvy, but they're also more conscious. So they're going to know when you're just BSing me with all this stuff that is just not, realistic and feasible. So the consciousness has to me has risen over the last few years as well. So
and connection. I think people, well, I mean, I'm hoping so. I mean, I'm really hoping that people are buying for the right reasons. And I think that's the part that I find the biggest problem is how things are positioned in marketing. When we hear example after example after success stories in a program that's had thousands and thousands and thousands of people in them, and then they're cherry picking like a few people who are in the right place at the right time with the right niche and the right everything to have increased, like have done really well, really fast.
Right.
And that's positioned like that's the typical result when it's actually, yes, it's a testimonial, but it's rather than saying, well, that only happened to like 0.5% of the people who've ever taken this program. So I think there is still lack of ethics there around that, because when you're selling something that nobody can like look at, touch, see, feel, and try on and then return, I think you need to actually, you can use real examples of this person got this benefit and allowed them to do this thing, but not blanketing it in we're not going to tell you the details. Right. They just joined this thing, got this miraculous result. You can do it too. So I think that's where I'm hoping people get still even more critical and discern what they're really actually getting, because the smoke and mirrors thing still happens all the time.
Yeah, it's still happening. Yeah. Let's talk about the different types of memberships, because I talked to you about kind of like a community, and then there's this membership site. So what's the difference?
Okay.
I think you have 3 types or something.
Well, okay. So there's 3. Okay. There's 3 models and 3 types. And I know I could come up with some better language, but the 3 models I like talking about, and I'll just share with you briefly, or this sort of idea of like, where does it fit within your business model? So there's like the warm up, which it's the usually lower ticket, but I've got bigger ticket programs that I want to sell to these people. And that works really well when you have a lot of people who come into your world or find out about you and just want to join something right away. There's the flagship model, which is kind of your all-in-one, like this is the thing that you want to grow and the only thing you want to grow, and you want to have all your deliverables in one place. Like you want one program. Right. And then there's the follow-up, easier, because if you've got a lot of one-on-one clients or people you've worked with in programs, you can simply invite them to continue doing the learning and the growth over time together that you started working on more privately together. And then it just keeps them threaded to you. So tethered, I should say, to you. So those are ways to think about it. Like, how does it fit within your business model, and what can you expect around like planning? Like, what are you going to charge for it? I mean, if you've been charging expensive VIP days with clients, you can probably you don't have to charge a super low amount for follow-up work, because it's going to be a lot less than had they bought from you privately. So I do like to put that out there, because I want people to see why they're doing it. Like, how does it fit within their model in the first place?
Yeah.
And then second of all,
can I just go in there? Yeah. The warm up is kind of an audience building almost, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
It can work well for audience building if it's lower ticket and Yeah. I mean, yeah, because it can be something that we could also be a lost leader.
Mhm.
Like, meaning if we have these amazing programs that we want people to do intensive work in, then we can have people come into that, and it doesn't even have to be profitable if we're really getting our clients, our main earnings from the membership who buy
Right.
into different programs. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good.
An interesting model. Yeah. And then I think you were asking sort of about like how to structure the membership when you have a membership, and you're asking, okay, what are the components of it? And I think is that what you're asking? Like what really determines what's a membership?
Yeah, kind of like, is it content based? Is it
Mhm.
community based? I remember those two types that you were mentioning. I just finished watching your 4-day, what is it called? Boot
Boot camp.
camp. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's over, but hopefully you'll do it again. So we'll link to a waiting list or something like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but
Yeah. It's
yeah,
been a lot of fun.
you mentioned those different structures. I don't know what you call them, but
Yeah, well, it's structure for deliverables, and this is the sustainability piece actually, which is good to talk about because a lot of people again feel overwhelmed by what they think they have to create for their members every month, and then usually when they feel that way, they overwhelm their members by just trying to
right.
stuff too much in. So when
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
when I look at what the three ways of delivering are in a membership, especially for a service provider, there is a mentorship. So I consider that live calls. It could also be a Facebook Q&A live, although that to me borders a little bit less on mentorship because it's hard to get Q&A. It's hard to ask questions and have conversation in a chat when they're live. And then there's the education model, which really is content. I mean, there was someone in that we had some VIP calls in the boot camp this week, and there's someone who has templates and training. So every month she wants to deliver templates and training. So that is more of an education model. It may have a community aspect of it. It may the mentorships in the training, but it's less about being coached.
Right.
And then there's a community aspect. And then I have someone inside the Profitable Membership Club who has a live event every year, and the people really want to the attendees want to stay connected. So she has a community-based membership that goes throughout the year, and that is she's doing prompts and events and things inside that, but it's really about people staying connected and being inspired by the connections to take action and do the things that she's encouraging them to do for themselves. So those are three types, and you can have all three. I just want people to really know what is your strength, like what is your strong suit in those three. And if you need to gradually build up because you don't have loads and loads of members, because you'll have a lot more in a membership of 1,000 people than you will of 10. Because if you've got 10, people are getting access to you and they're getting handheld a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to put in all the things that 1,000-person membership would need to be successful, because they're going to be a little more on their own and lost if you don't have a few things they can access
Right.
in different ways. So that's really just, how do you focus on the one thing that you will do consistently every month?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you change like times, call times and types of content and all that, it's just rather than feeling you have to stuff everything in and have everything firing. Because it doesn't have to. Like I said, I don't mind because I have calls and I do guest experts and like I've got good content in there. I don't feel like if everyone doesn't want to chit chat in the community all the time, I'm not necessarily going to put a prompt in every single day.
I love that. I just started a Trello board for our community because I
Oh,
just
interesting.
really, really did not want to do Facebook, did not want to do Mighty Networks, did not want to do Discord or Slack. And yet the community wanted, a way to be able to engage, which makes sense in between the calls. But I made it very clear that this is not going to be the place where I'm going to ask, what did you have for dinner last night? Or what's your favorite, blah, blah, blah. And my people, they know that about,
Yeah.
and we're all the same. We're like, no, we want a focused thing. And so Trello works really well for that. And I think that's also what you're telling your clients. It's like, choose what you're already good at and and yeah, make that even better. So
yeah, like try to find what you like. If you don't want to be on Facebook, then don't get on Facebook unless you've got something so obvious that if you're not on Facebook, because it's like your interest is like people who love certain kinds of dogs that do certain kind of dog things, and you want to have everyone in the whole world be part of it, that, you know, that don't have a lot of technical savvy.
It's gonna
So
be difficult on LinkedIn. Yeah.
yeah, or well, there's not, I don't even know if there's a proper group. Yeah, there is, but it doesn't work very well. You do want people to show up and consume the content. And so
Right.
even if I have a Slack community, and it works really well because it's really organized. I love how organized it is. It's probably similar to Trello in that it's kind of got some linearness to it.
Right.
And it's like, it's not, I don't expect everyone to get all their information from there. I still email everybody every week and they all open their emails, and that's still going to be probably the full stop. Like every week, if you really want to know what's going on and don't want to miss something, then that can go there. So I think that's just how you can run it until conversations can begin more organically, and then you don't even have to be prompting. So if the goal isn't to get everyone to connect and get to know each other on and communicate regularly, it's, if the goal is a different transformation, like I want you to be successful in this thing, then it doesn't have to be your number one focus, because that's going to overwhelm you. And it's also going to overwhelm you if you feel like people should be chatting it all the time. When there's not very many people. I mean, there's a number that one of my members actually shared with me. She said something about the rule of 99 and 1. You'll have one ambassador, really engaged person who's always in there and always talking. You'll have 9 who are in and out, and then you'll have 90 who are lurk.
Yeah.
So
And
if
they're
you think
still
about
learning,
having a small membership, that's what your probability of engagement is going to be.
Yeah. And the other thing is, what I love what you're saying is like, don't overwhelm yourself thinking that a membership site has to have thousands and thousands of videos already as you start, right? Because obviously, if we look at some of the big membership sites, that's what this is.
There's history, right? There's a lot in there from the past.
Yeah. And so people can feel like, oh my God, I can never start one because I don't have all of this content. And so you're saying, well, then don't make it a content-based membership.
Well, or start with them. Like I actually, we just had this call yesterday, and I actually have had a couple content calls this week with bootcamp people and members of the Profitable Membership Club. And I just say, look, start with them. Like if you have month 1 and you're just starting with your founding members, then deliver a month 1.
Yeah.
And if you have month 2, because you're starting with your foundational content, the things that are the most important, the things that you know best and that you believe people need first. So rather than opening it up like a choose your own adventure, I would say, look at it more like, where do they need to begin and how do you take them together on it, rather than feel like you have a smorgasbord, because I don't think people really want to dabble. And, you know, let's face it, most things people can learn for free somewhere out there on the internet. So they're paying you for curation. They're paying you for a system to some extent, to say like, or even just helping them, remind them that they need to go back to the beginning. Like I always say to a lot of my members, it's like, can you just go back to module 1? Because they're still not doing the module 1. Like they still won't go back to the foundation course, or so I'm always reminding them to go back to that thing that they last said that they would do if they're not launched their membership yet. Right. So I think that's where they're paying us in a way for that guidance. And even if we are like a large membership, there's still ways that people can ask, I'm stuck, where should I go? That's part of the benefit. And that is really the value, rather than going out there on the internet and scouring it and trying to piece together a plan.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's where we can start just with like, hey, I have a foundational course that's 9 modules. So I've started 2 cohorts of we're going to work through this together week by week. And that's been how 2 enrollments worked in my membership program. I walked them through the modules, and that was really helpful for them. So I think that's where you don't have to do that. But I also feel like if people are starting and you just have 100 things, they're not going to want to go through 100 things.
Right. Yeah, it's just too, again, it's this overwhelm. It's like, oh, where do I start? Why did I sign up for this? I'm feeling
Yeah, they
lost
get one thing a
already.
month. They get one focus a month. They're not
Mm.
paying unless, well, and actually even at high ticket depends on the value of that to them, but you don't have to give them, $1,000 of value in the first month if you're charging less than that. So you have to realize that if it's $100 a month, then it's 10 months and they can pick up as they go. And that then if they have a founding members rate, they're paying less than say someone else who comes in later and might be paying double per month. And they might have access to some past things, but they
Yeah.
probably won't even go in there and look for it. I mean, people still don't even know how to get around mine, and I don't have that much in there, but I have to still direct them to what I think I want them to watch
Yeah.
or look at in an
Yeah.
email.
No, they come for the ongoing. They don't come for,
Yeah.
all this stuff that's
Yeah, exactly. Most
past.
people don't have the capacity to look through
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're spending your time managing, say, pointing people to where it is, and that can get cumbersome once you have a lot of members, I'd imagine.
Well, you just need a really good roadmap when you start.
Or that,
Yeah.
or a help desk or something.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good problem that we can deal with good problems. We just want to make sure that we're not operating that way when we're not that big.
Yeah. Let's talk about how do you keep members? Because, first, I guess we're struggling. Okay, how do we get members? But really, what we're wanting to do is a sustainable concept that people are going to stay, at least hopefully for a year, maybe even longer, depending on the type of membership site. But how do we get people to stay?
So to me, it's a funny one. I really just think it comes down to be awesome and be a great deal, like be a good value. Like people, whatever you're offering does need to be of a good value exchange for them. I mean, people who use things even in a small way or appreciate that the resource is there when they need it, like they will stay because it's a good value. And so that's why people often do a founding member rate, because people are like, I might not use this next month, but I'm still paying half the price of people now or something like that. And they're like, okay, so if I skip every other month of actually doing something, it's still worth it to me. Or they get on a call, they learn one really, really important thing that changes how they do things. And that ROI is huge. So I think, first of all, you'd know who your ideal member is, and you have to be clear that if someone, like, for example, someone's in the Profitable Membership Club and they change their mind about memberships, or they're like, this is no longer my goal, or I'm putting off indefinitely, then why would they stay? I mean, although if they're growing any kind of business, I still can help them in a way, but in their head, they're like, oh, I'm here to learn about memberships. Therefore, even if I'm learning about marketing and positioning and all the things you need to do for any program, it still means that it doesn't feel like it's the right fit for them, or they're
You
just
have that
taking a
stamp
massive
on your
break.
forehead now,
Or they're just taking a massive break and they're just going back to one-on-one clients, which they don't have to do any marketing or anything. So the point of that is that, yes, I've picked that lane and saying I help membership business owners and people who want to launch them. That clarity brings people to me easier, who are like, I'm here because I want this outcome. And then the trade-off is that you are not attractive to those who don't want that outcome, even though you could help them, but then that would water down the conversations and the focus and the sharing. And you just get really clear on who you help and what the transformation is. And then that grows naturally because it's easy to share something that's easy to share.
Right.
So if you're clear about who you help and in what way, and you always talk to those people and you always produce content that would appeal to those people and etc., that's how you be relevant to them. So and if you're not offering enough value, sorry,
it's the positioning really that
needs to be very all clear. The positioning.
Yeah,
I think it's all the positioning. And then as your membership matures, it is a little bit about the community and connection, because there are people who will stay because they just love you or they love the other people they've met and they want to stay connected. And it is the mentor. There's some kind of mentorship connect community thing that is working for them. And helping them do more, better, or less, in an easier way. Like it does add value to them. And, that stuff is priceless, right? And people will know it. They will know if they're like, oh, I've networked, or I met somebody and they gave me an opportunity that led to a client, and now I've paid for my membership for the year. I mean, those relationships really do matter. So I think that's why I'm not into all the tactics. Like you can do this thing and get them to do this thing. And I just want people to stay because it's the right for them.
Right. Yeah.
And I want people who are committed. Honestly, like I know not everyone's always committed to their goals all the time, but when you do get a group of people who are really committed and are following through and are taking action, you've got a really great place to be. And that's really the foundation of what you want for your membership when you start. Or even if it builds slowly, you build that fire that can actually last and sustain, because it keeps, people who keep getting, like, adding to it, who are also committed, and then has sort of a life force of its own that that will see and feel, even if they're just lurking and saying, I'm not doing this thing yet, but I want to, because look at all these other people. So they might be there for inspiration.
Yeah, that brings me to another question, because usually the membership model is like pay monthly and cancel whenever you want.
Yeah.
And that kind of contradicts the committed. It's like, yes, we want you to commit, but yes, you can also cancel every month. So do we have to follow this model where it's like you can cancel anytime, or do we say we'd love for you to stay for 3 months at least? Or
yeah, I would. I mean, I
even
suggest that when you're launching, I suggest that, because sometimes it might take a while to get your feet, grounded and with what you're offering and how, and learning a few things. And you do need to have a few months where you can get a little bit of stuff worked out. So I would agree that it's good to get people, like I had a few times where it was 3 months to start. And then some people do a year. I mean, some people do longer, and I think that's fine too. I think it's up to you, because yes, you'll get more committed. You'll get less like looky-loos. Like you will get less people who just aren't committed and they won't join. And then you just get more people. So there is really just that trade-off about what is the membership about to you anyway. Is it access to anyone at any time for when they need it? Or is it really meant for people who are committed only and in a smaller group? And I think that's what you just have to decide.
Yeah.
And what matters to you, like what and how kind of big your reach is and how much you're charging. Like, could you sustain it if you didn't have some people here joining for maybe 3 to 6 months?
Yeah.
It's a personal choice. I mean, what really to me defines a membership is that you lose access when you cancel. So regardless, you cancel, you don't have the materials, unlike a course that you might have bought and you've got lifetime access to it, which I think everything's starting to change a little bit on that. And a lot of people are losing, I guess, stopping access to things when the time is up and they want them to keep paying, have continued access. So a lot of things are changing to subscription in general. However, you just decide on what's going to get you a secure foothold to get started. And if you have a group of founding members and they're paying an irresistible price, that'll also keep them.
I do think, obviously everything is going much more in the direction of subscription, but living in the times that we are in right now, people are also kind of starting to count their subscriptions because, it used to be new to have a subscription. Now it's like everything is subscription. And so people are really more mindful. Okay, again, do I get value out of this subscription?
Am I using it?
Am I using it? Yeah. So
you're, again, retention is about getting people to use it.
Yeah.
And like, there's only so much within your control, because if they're just not interested in the result anymore, then they're not, then they shouldn't be using it. And if they still are interested in the result, how do you bring them back in and remind them what's here? That's the communication piece.
Yeah.
And it is okay to check in once in a while if you haven't heard from a member and you're still small, and be like, hey, do you want to do a quick chat? I mean, I did one recently with someone who hadn't joined the community and hadn't showed up on a call. And she's like, I've been really busy working in her career, but I've been working through the course and I'm loving it. And she's built through the whole course, and she went through it she's in academia, very academically, and went through all the modules. And I had no idea. So we make assumptions that people aren't using it too, when they actually are. We're just not seeing them use it.
Yeah, that's funny because our community, the Humane Marketing Circle, is more about community, and it's a think tank to figure out and talk to each other about what works in marketing and what doesn't work.
Great.
So, and it's interesting that, there's members that are never on the calls. And yet I see, because I use Kajabi, I see that they're watching all the replays, and one of them is sending me an email every time after the call. And she's like, I get a lot out of it, even though I'm not on the live calls. So like
Exactly.
you said, we can't assume what people want. So if it works for her, it works for me.
Exactly. That's the other thing we have to recognize, is that we're not as in much control as another program where it's like, here's the set out, like, we're going to meet 3 times a month. This is the time. Everyone has to show up because it's a mastermind. We're not running that kind of program. So we do have to let go a little bit and trust that people are going to self-lead, because that's what they're there for, and make decisions that are right for them. And so really it just becomes about who are the people who are in the community, sitting on the fence, not taking action because they need a little bit more guidance. And that's really who you have an ability to help, because really you do want people to get results too. You don't want people that are in there and happy to also keep paying, but then doing nothing. I mean, you do, that's fine. It's like, it's their choice, but the more of them that you can actually start to take action and be grateful for it and be good examples, that's really how you will become successful naturally in this model.
Yeah, it nurtures you as the host of the membership or the community.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
So good. I'm looking at the time, and I think it's starting to get time to wrap up, even though I have tons of other questions. So we might have to do a round 2.
Anytime.
Yeah. Do you tell us where people can find you? Maybe you have something free that you want to share, but tell us all about it.
Yeah, well, the coolest thing I have is an app. So I have a Scaling Deep app, which you can go onto and get all the trainings that I have scattered around the globe.
Oh, cool.
Some of them aren't even available. So there's a Scaling Deep app that is there that you can access a lot of cool stuff. And if you're not an app person, you can head on over to my website, scalingdeep.com. I have like a free download on how to scale your business with a membership site. You can get that at scalingdeep.com/playbook. And or just come find me. I've got a Facebook group. I've got all kinds of ways, but you can see all that if you land on my homepage on my website.
Wonderful. I have one last question, and that's, what are you grateful for today or this week?
I think I'm just grateful right now for my energy, because I've had an energetic week running the boot camp, and I've just felt really good. I'm grateful that I feel like I'm in purpose, and I've been having so much fun that I've been focused on serving sustainably in a way, and also building assets. So I'm less doing it for reasons of like needing to hit certain goals or certain outcomes. So just really feeling grateful for the momentum I'm creating in my business, and the trust that I know that things are going in the right direction. And that's just a really good feeling. We don't always have it. So I'm super grateful for that.
Yeah. And that's such a good last word on memberships, because we can get lost in those launches and just focus on numbers and how many new members do I need. So I think it's such a beautiful way to wrap this up and say, just enjoy the energy and enjoy serving the people who are there. So
we got to love the work, or else it's not the right work.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Humane Marketing Podcast, Lisa.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for watching and being part of a generation of marketers who cares for yourself, for your clients, and for the planet. We really are change makers before we are marketers. So go ahead, be the change you want to see in the world. And I hope to see you again next week. Take care.